I'm DaJuan Johnson. Welcome to the Think Bigger Actors podcast, where I share with you different kinds of talks and coachings and conversations with actors and industry professionals on thinking bigger. I hope these conversations will help you on your path to success, because I believe success is an inside job that starts with your mindset and the thoughts you hold dominant in your mind. Change your thoughts and you change your world. Your path to thinking bigger begins now. Welcome back to the Think Bigger Actors podcast. I'm your host, DaJuan Johnson, and what an episode we have for you today with our interview. I brought in Brent Bailey, and you are going to want to listen to this, and we'll talk about that in a second, because first and foremost, it is Pride Month. Happy Pride Month. You know, I have a great lineup for Pride Month. I got Johnny Sibley, who's from Hacks and Queer as Folk, Pose. He'll be on later this month. And Tony Rodriguez is coming in from The Simpsons. He voices Julio, who you might know him as Marge Simpson's hairdresser, and so many other things this guy's done. And you get this. We actually went to college together at University of Florida. So that conversation might be kind of fun if you want to know what DaJuan was like in college. That's going to be a great episode. And also Tony's story about how he got the role for Julio on The Simpsons is something I believe every actor should listen to. And, consider taking risks like this. I think we play it very, very safe in this industry, because we told we got to do A plus B equals C. And that's just not the case. And what I think Tony did here is so great. So happy freaking Pride Month. I'm so excited. I'm going to be dropping stuff about Pride, this entire month. We got 3 episodes this month, and it's just really great. And so if you don't know about Pride and you don't know why we celebrate Pride, goes back to Stonewall, the last weekend in June. It's very important. I think it's very important about the time we're having right now, because we saw some Stonewall type activity, at some gay bars recently, and it made my stomach drop. It made me, feel a little bit like, gosh, I thought we were further along than this, but are we? So anyway, I'm so excited about it. And one of the great things about this episode, bad transition, I just had a bad transition to my things, but one of the great things about this business is if you're lucky or work long enough, you get to work with some of the same actors a couple of times in different projects. And I think Brent and I have worked with each other in very different parts of our careers, which is really great. Earlier on a web series called Synthesized Life, which is over a decade ago, now that I think about it, like in 2013, I want to say, I believe, before my Bosch days. And then again, recently on a film called 1-800-HOT Night. So, but we can talk about that later. If you don't know by now, like I said before, my guest episodes come out every other week, and then in between there I do the mini-sodes. Last week's mini-sode was on agent, so if you didn't hear that one, you want to talk about that. That's agent abuse, and really just finding agents, and how actors are always talking about I hate my agent, but they're not working for me. Yeah, I mean, but how do you know they're not working for you? And we talked about that because Joe Girard brought that up in the Think Bigger Actor Summit, which is online. You can go grab you a copy of that, Think Bigger Actor Summit. And really talked about how do you know that your team isn't working for you? Are you just listening to other actors out there? And I think that's really, really important, especially, if you're only thinking about auditions, and it just becomes a little bit more intricate than that. So yeah, and it's good. Don't worry. The minisodes are fantastic. They're nice, concise things. There's no D12 shots. So you don't get the pleasure of me coaching and bringing that part together, which is so many of your favorite parts. Thank you all so much for reaching out and saying you love the D12 shots or you listen to the D12 shots. That makes me happy. I wonder if I have a sound machine where it's clap, clap. That's just me. That's just me making that sound. But one day I'll have applause sound and stuff like that. So, and yes, also the last episode, I, talked about the Booked and Busy Actors Retreat. It's our second annual one. And so I'm so pumped about that one, coming back. So let's go ahead and get into the episode stuff, and let's talk about more. Let me introduce Brett for real, and let's go from there. Today's episode is brought to you by Casting Networks. Casting Networks helps performers find great roles and industry professionals find great talent. You can create a profile, upload your photos and reels, find an agent, and submit to thousands of projects. Your next role could be just a few clicks away. So for a limited time, Casting Networks is offering our listeners $65 off a premium annual membership when you use the code Think Bigger at checkout. You can start submitting to casting calls right away. Terms and conditions apply. So visit www.castingnetworks.com/promo-codes to learn more. Oh, Brent. This episode right here, it's a reminder that you can build a career that actually feels good to you. Because I sat down with, actor, producer, all around a multi-hyphenate Brent Bailey, my friend too, and we had a real conversation. We talked about everything from his early Romcom days to writing and selling his own Lifetime Christmas movie to the mindset that helps him stay grounded and booked for over a decade in this business. And you know what? Let's not skip over his commercial game. Brent's commercial game. Come on, Hunky, Target, Santa. He had a Shell campaign, a BMW campaign. Look, Brent's booked the kind of campaigns that fund the freedom to do it your way. So we unpack all of that. What it really means to create success on your own terms, your own way, not the industry's, not your agents, not what your Instagram says, but yours. Plus, why learning to say yes, even before you feel ready, might be the most powerful thing you do in your career. Brent talks about all of that. And let me tell you, I'm going to bring it all together. I'm going to bring it all together at this D12 shot. So make sure you stick around to the end of this episode for that. But let's get into the episode, DaJuan. Let's get into the episode. Here we go. Hey, Brent, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh man, I'm so good. I am so excited about today because listen, there's a lot to talk to you about. A lot. And mostly as I was doing a deep dive into B-Rent, I realized that we have been in each other's sphere for a very long time, starting with, and this is going to be a little awkward, everybody out there. This is going to be a little awkward with you stealing my leading role from My Synthesized Life. Are we going to talk about
it? Was so long ago. Did I know this?
I don't know that you knew that I was. I don't even, as I even say this, everybody, as I even say this, I don't know if I auditioned for The Best Friend or I don't know. I'm joking, really, but you know what I mean. And it was one of those things. But we've been friends since then, so long ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's 20 years ago, maybe or something. When did we do that?
I would guess it would have had to have been around 12 or 13 years ago.
Okay. Wow. That's a long time.
Even 13 or 14. Yeah, it's been a long time. It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't want to be weird about this, but I never saw it.
Listen, it was really unique and it was fun. And the concept was kind of cool. My character gets electrocuted by his radio. And then now his voice goes into auto tune anytime he's in high stress situations. I can't sing. I'm terrible at singing. And so I was very clear from the beginning with the creator and writer, Nate Golan. And I was like, hey, bud, I'm just going to talk these lines and then you're going to fix it in post. Right. And he's like, totally. And then after take one, he was like, I'm going to need you to sing them. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had to sing in front of so many people.
Oh, I remember.
It was mortifying.
Yeah. We were at the karaoke bar and you were singing.
Oh man. I was so embarrassed, but it was a really good lesson in acting that you kind of just have to embrace feeling silly. And then once you get past that, it was a lot of fun. And I actually think that project all in itself helped me in so many different ways of my career, because then I was like, it can't get any worse than singing in front of people.
Yeah.
And everything was great. I was like, cool, I can do this.
That's good. I also bring this up also everybody out there to see when you're first starting off in your career, I think we were really young, the 13, 14 years ago, whatever that was, we're really young or much younger than we are now.
Sadly not young enough, but we were younger.
We were younger. Well, you think about it. We were young. And I think the thing I got to know really quickly after that, even when I was in my Bosch days, was that these aren't your competition. There's so much more. It's better for these people to be your friends. Do you know what I mean? And you get to see that this business becomes a lot sweeter when you look at it that way, instead of all these people are your competition. And so as we've been in this world together, we've been in a lot more since then, right? Together. And I think it's just been better for me to say, "Hey, what's up, Brent?" Like, you know what I mean? Instead of like, this guy took my role. So I think that's the lesson I really wanted to put out there for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was actually just having this conversation with one of my buddies yesterday, and I was saying, like, if I don't book something, I'd much rather somebody else that I find equally talented or really nice or well deserving to get the role. It gets a little trickier when you don't, like, if somebody's really mean or rude and they book it, because then you're not really rooting for them, but you got to do your best to make the effort. Because I do think once you look at this business as a competition, it makes it more miserable and way more challenging.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun. Like, I help people tape all the time. I know you do too. And I love it. Even if we're auditioning for the same thing, I love when they kill it. And if they book it, I'm so excited for them because there's more than enough work to go around.
I think so.
If you book something that I was up for, then all of a sudden I booked something else that I wouldn't have been available for while you're shooting. And so like it all works out. You can't be competitive with everybody. It's
Yeah,
impossible.
but you don't start there. You don't start with that mindset, right? Like, or did
Oh,
you?
it's tough.
No, I'm saying like in the beginning, did you? It evolved into that, right?
100%. Yeah, because I think at the beginning you go into it being like when you walk into a room and you're surrounded by 30 other guys that look just like you, and then you're listening to their audition and you're like, oh gosh, this is my competition. It's hard not to get competitive. And I do think it takes time in the career and trusting that the work will come and trusting that you're going to be okay and that like you can share and there is enough to go around. And then that's when you start to evolve in being excited for other people. And I think that kind of mentality is very contagious. And I also think it like work begets work. So if you're encouraging other people, I think it helps you in your own personal life, which then in turn helps you in your work life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't want to monopolize all the time talking about my synthesized live, but I do want to say that, one of the things I've always admired about you from afar, and I've said this to you because I say things out loud a lot, is that I've always admired how, for me, it looks like you have always taken this career at your own pace. You have always decided that this is how I'm going to do it. What do I mean by that? Is what I see from the outside is, all right, I bought a house. I'm going to spend most of my time talking, breathing, fixing my house, or fixing my car, you know what I mean? Or doing those things instead of being like, while we're all over here spinning about like our next audition, what's going to happen? You're like, I'm going to go to Big Bear and I'm going to buy a house there and get a hot tub and fix this up. And I've always really and this could be like totally the facade that you've had out there, but I want to talk a little bit about your mindset, Brent. Like, it seems like that from the outside, that's what you've been doing. You work a lot, so we can't take that away from you. But it seems like the mindset that you've brought to this career is, well, I'm going to also do this stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. First of all, I am terrible at social media. So when I post something, it's because I genuinely like it or want to talk about it or want to share it. So usually it's either like, DIY stuff around the house, stuff with cars, or, snowboarding adventures, something with like real life and friends. And then also the second part of that is I post about work just because I am really proud of the work we do and I'm excited to share it. And I think that that's also really awesome. But I think one of the reasons I've been able to have that mentality of enjoy the journey, like trust the process, is because anytime I book a job, which this is probably to an unhealthy extent, I go, this could be the last job I ever book. So I save all of my money and I spend it really wisely. That way, if I don't book a job for the rest of the year, I'm okay. And I don't have to go into panic mode. And so that makes it easier for me to be a little looser and just enjoy like, all right, I'm going to go to Big Bear because there's nothing happening, as opposed to like, I have to find a job or I can't pay my rent. And obviously the first 5 years weren't like that. I had a day job. I worked at Blockbuster Video and I worked 40 or 50 hours a week. And I was hustling and doing all the things you have to do to start building a career. But thankfully, through commercials and TV and film, I was able to build a good enough nest egg to now just kind of enjoy the ride. And I think that is another.
Wait, hold on, everybody. He's being like very mild about commercials. We're talking about commercial campaigns here. Like, I was taking pictures of you and Shell for a while. Like, I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, so it isn't like the commercials like you like one off. It's a beautiful campaign too. You know what I mean? Which is really big and awesome. Nothing to take away from what you're talking about, but like it's different than your one off commercial. Yeah.
Yeah, but the funny thing about that is, I mean, Shell was different. Shell was presented as a campaign. And I booked it as a campaign. When I was also the spokesperson for Clorox Hertz, and I did a BMW campaign.
BMW, the winter thing, right?
Yeah, the winter thing. And we started doing summer too. But those started off as one-offs and then they liked it. And so then they were like, let's turn this into a campaign, which is not all that common. I'm not saying it's a regular thing, but those were such fortunate things.
Yeah.
And that then again helped because commercials, I mean, you and I both know commercials generally, as long as they're union, you survive on commercials. So you can get some of those every year. Then, you don't have to have the bartending job, the waiter job, whatever the side hustle is. But even when I do book, and as much as I do book, I still do side hustles. I'll still, I Airbnb my Big Bear house out. I still take headshots for people. I'm always doing something because I don't want to ever just be sitting here stagnant waiting for jobs to come in. And I like to be active.
Yeah. No, I love it. Like I'm like I said, it when I think of you, I think of this person that's really just done it at his own pace.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And really it's just like
that.
No, it's really great. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, now he's putting floors in, and you know what I mean? Oh, now the car.
Ceilings out.
Right. And I don't know. And in my mind, you're doing it all with your hands. Like you're like, because that's what you're showing me. You could be like, now it's cut to the contractors come in or something.
Contractors definitely did that because if those fail, this house falls down, and that's not that talented.
This is we're in LA right now. Okay.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was really kind of cool. So because I admired when I booked a lot of commercials and a lot of that stuff in the beginning, but what I did was travel more. Right. And how I know like travel, like, but I also wish I had, bought a house and stuff with that. But what I did do is when I started getting a little bit smarter, everybody, between Bosch and I had a Chevy commercial, I think it was, or maybe it was some commercial, I don't know, that they accidentally didn't pay me for. And then when they renegotiated it, they didn't, I wasn't a part of the renegotiation. And so when the people were like coming back and saying, DaJuan, are you in this commercial? And I was like, yeah, that's me. And then when it came back, SAG, we had to fight SAG. We ended up getting $75,000.
Oh my God. Ever.
$75,000. But when it got to me, it was like 35. You know how like everybody takes all their taxes and, all that stuff. But we put that towards the house. What I mean? So all that stuff, you know what I mean? So it worked out that way. And then, so I agree. But you've always been my, house mentor in my head.
Luckily, my parents are awesome and they've been such incredible role models. So they taught me like very early on that, that's like the real estate is something you invest in because especially in Los Angeles, rent has gone out of control. And I mean, you were so much better off if you had the means to buy a house back when I bought in like 2012. And like now it's like probably a third of what people's rent would be. So it's out of control. But I also got my master's in business. So like, thankfully, I've been able to combine like the business side of acting with the creative side of acting, which has also helped make this more manageable.
I didn't know that. I mean, I think that's it. I'm coming from like everybody out there. We're all artsy, right? We're all like, let's just feel, let's just do it. And I will say this one thing. I've said this many times on the podcast that I wish I had known what I know now when I was actually waiting tables. Because when I was waiting tables, I had influx of money coming in, and that is when it was consistent money, and I could have bought a house. As opposed to when I was on Bosch, that I could not buy a house because I was only working 4 to 5 months out of the year.
Right.
And it was a whole big thing. And, so if you're listening to this and you're working that bartending job, or those things like that is a great time also to buy as well, because you have stable income and that's what they want to see, especially now. So we bought in 2016 for that one as well.
That's amazing.
So listen, enough about the commercials and the houses and all that stuff. I got a bone to pick with you, and I'm sure all the lovers out there will just say know you from a lot of Romcom. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, like, how has this become like, the guy who would sing Synthesize Life or who would sell Michelle, all of a sudden you've made this beautiful, seamless transition into the actor Romcom. You know what I mean? Like, where did that come from?
I mean, I've always loved rom-coms. Like I would have killed for Ashton Kutcher's career or, any of the guys from like the 90s and like early 2000 rom-coms. But a combination of things happened. I think I was comfortable enough because it was around 2016 when I shifted more into the rom-com world. And that had happened because a guy who's a writer, director, producer, he's brilliant, but he does a lot of them. His name's Jake Helgren. And
Hmm. Hmm.
Girlfriends of Christmas Past, which was really my first like kind of leading role in a rom-com.
Hmm.
And he had seen me in a couple other things and reached out and offered me the role of Hunky Santa in the movie. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think it was like one of my first offers. And so I was like, can I read the script? And I read the script and I was like, listen, I'm so flattered. I will happily take Hunky Santa. But there's a guy named Carter in it that is like the love interest. I would much rather be him. And he kind of laughed and he's like, yeah, of course you would rather be him. He's the like the second or third lead. And I was like, okay, how do I make that happen? And he's like, they're never gonna go for it. And I was like, I will. Can I tape for it? Can I like somehow win this role? And he was generous enough to let me tape. And then Stephanie Slack and some other people watched it and they were like, this is our guy. So once I booked that,
Yeah.
just getting your toes into that world, I then got on what I've been told is like a short list. So anytime they're doing a new, Lifetime Hallmark Mar Vista type movie, I'm sort of approved if the role fits what I can offer. And so then thankfully I kind of went down that path for a little while. And then on one of the movies I was doing, which was actually again with Stephanie Slack, she was like, do you write? And I was like, yeah, I write. And she's like, oh,
This is like, do you ride a horse? And they're
yeah,
like,
sure, I'll learn. So she's like, what are you writing? And I was like, Christmas rom-com, obviously. And so then she's like, I'd love to read it. And so I was
wait a
like,
minute, this is
oh,
so bad.
I was like,
I
you know
know the
what?
ending.
Yeah, I was like, I'm kind of like, the it's a work in progress. Give me 6 months and I'll send it to you. So I read that book, How to Save the Cat. Uh,
Yes, yes.
and I read a couple blogs and I, did some master classes and then I wrote a script. I sent it to some friends. They gave some great notes and feedback. And then I gave it to Stephanie and she's like, hey, this is actually really good. This isn't kind of what we're looking to make, but you should keep this in your back pocket. And then I was doing that movie with Jodie Sweetin called Craft Me a Romance. I got really friendly with Ann and Doug, who were the producers of that movie. And it was one of those things where I was like, what do you guys got going on next? And they're like, nothing. What do you got going on? We need a movie. And I was like, I got a movie. And they said, let's make it. And so Brian Herzlinger came in, helped me like finish up and rewrite it so it worked for the Lifetime format. They put their money and their trust in us. We signed Maria Menounos. It got bought by Lifetime, and then it premiered on Christmas Eve 2022. So it was like
Yeah.
such a serendipitous, awesome situation, but also a really important lesson for me that like there is like, what is it? Like luck meets timing and preparation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you got to have your stuff ready. So yeah.
Opportunity and preparation, right? Yeah.
Yes, you got to make sure you're ready when the opportunity strikes because you never know. So you just got to be prepared. And that happened to work out in a really amazing way.
Okay, so I'm very interested in this. This is one of the things I have like the biggest section of questions for you on this. So we're gonna
Okay.
we're gonna we're gonna we're gonna we're gonna take this back so we can break this down because I think one of the things that a lot of people we've heard so many times before is write something, do something, and what made you number one? We'll start here. What made you not just decide to do this the way all the other actors I feel are doing it in our career? And I don't want to like this isn't a poo-poo and everything, but everybody's like, I'm just going to only audition and wait for a booking to get into these things. But
Right.
you've decided now I'm going to take this whole different path. What did what? Because you could have just said no, I don't write. You could
Right.
have just said no, what there has to be right there. You're at a precipice. You're at a fork in the road. Talk to me about that moment only.
I think, something again, my dad taught me early on is you say yes to opportunities. And I looked at that as an opportunity. I also like to follow people that I kind of admire their careers and that I look up to. And so many actors, including like Tina Fey, she's like, listen, you can't sit around for the phone to ring. Like the business has changed. If you want to have a successful career, you got to kind of play both sides of the camera. You got to write, you got to create your own stuff.
Yeah.
And there's so much competition out there now that you kind of have to make your own path.
Yeah.
And and that's not to say like I do know people that did not write and have just had auditions and somehow like their first credit is a series regular on a show.
Mhm.
I don't understand how that happens. There's always lightning in a bottle. And I'm so excited for them that it did happen that way. But for the majority of people, you hustle and you say yes, you figure out how to do it, and you do your good work and you make it happen. So
I
I
wonder
seize those opportunities.
I wonder what you just said though, Brent, is that why do we focus on that one person when there's a million other right behind that one that didn't get that series regular, right? We're like, but that's the odd that I want to bet on is that one person. And if we heard this a different way where we can have maybe even more success the
Right.
other way, taking this back door. I'm just thinking about what you said, and I was like, because everybody will say, well, so and so got a series regular. I'm like, all right, but that's one. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? And do we know that that person also got 2, 3, 4 after that, or has that?
It's the same reason people buy lottery tickets. I mean, the amount of people that win the lottery is very small, but the amount of people that buy tickets and
Yeah,
believe they're going to win is very high. And I mean, not to discredit anybody, but if you do take on more responsibility, you take on more risk and you have more options for failing.
yeah,
We're all afraid of failure. So if you say, like, cool, I'm going to write something, first of all, the chances of even writing it and getting it made are almost impossible. But then to write it, get it made, and then have people like it is even harder.
yes.
So many scary things that come along with putting yourself out there and being more vulnerable that I think most people are like, no, I don't want to do something that people think is bad. And so they're
Right.
like, we'll just do nothing at all. And I mean, that's not the business we got into.
It's
The
not.
fun part of this is taking risks. And if you do something bad, like especially on set, if you do a really bad take, they're like, cool, that was funny, but awful. So let's do something different. And you're like,
Yeah.
great, but we just learned. Like maybe we found another moment that we would have never found.
That's so interesting. I was talking about that today. I teach a class over at CSU as well. And I was just telling them, I just want you all to know, don't hold this stuff so precious because on set, if you make a mistake, guess what? We have editing. It's okay.
Yeah,
If
you
you're
mess up.
if you're in your self tape and you decide, great, I want to take another, you can do it. I think sometimes in these little containers, there might be classes and stuff like that. It's like bigger than it needs to be. And it's like, okay, cool. Let's figure that piece out. So you said, say yes. Your dad helped you say yes to every opportunity. When you have an
Yeah.
opportunity to say yes to those things, and creating was one of those things because Tina Fey and we've heard it. So many other people, have done stuff like that. What I also heard you say was, I'm breaking this down into pieces because I want to see if we can bite size this for everybody that's listening to this. So when we have this moment, you said yes to this opportunity, there has to be an oh crap moment. I don't, I,
Oh,
all, well, because here's what you also did. You also gave yourself a deadline
right.
when you were talking to Stephanie, you said, I'll have something for you in 6 months. I'll be finished with that. And so I guess you went into what mode next, where it was, I got to read Save the Cat. I have to write this script. I have to come up with an idea and then I
Yeah.
have to write this script. Talk to me about that part.
I mean, I think creating a deadline, I think, is just one of those things I learned in business school. Like, you have to create deadlines. If you don't create deadlines, it's always going to be like, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow turns into 5 years from now, and it just never comes.
Yeah.
So I think that the important part is setting a deadline, setting a goal. I used to have the vision board, and I'd be like, I want to get 5 co-stars this year. I want to do 2 commercials. So I've always had a really good time with setting goals, whether that's just because it motivates me or because I also believe in the secret and like manifesting your own reality. So I think also putting things that are tangible and that you can actually visually see in your realm, I think helps me personally accomplish them. Whether that works for anybody else,
Mhm.
I think it does. But that's up to them to decide. But I think after I had set the goal, I love challenges. So I love learning new things. And I was like, man, I respect writers. I mean, you and I both know when you're on set, you can tell good writing from bad writing, and that can make or break a project.
Easy.
Just as much as like we could be terrible and ruin a project too. But I think I respected that part of the craft. And so I wanted to understand and appreciate it more. So I felt this is a really cool challenge to kind of step outside of my world, see what was going on in theirs. And I mean, after writing a movie, I have so much respect for writers because it is tough. But it was really rewarding. And I think it even informed me more on the acting side of things, because then I understood a little bit more about beats, moments. What if you're on page 36 in an audition versus if you're on page 88? I was like, oh man, there's so much more to this on a technical aspect that now I'm going to be better on the acting side just because I
And
understand.
nobody comes in the scene and leaves the scene the same, right?
Yeah.
That's something that's super simple and that I read from Save the Cat. And I was like, oh, so if I'm entering here and me, not physically, but also just like we have to move the story along.
Right.
Nobody's there just to be like, hi, I'm a good actor.
Well, there's no like useless scene. There's no scene just to be like, oh, we just wanted to put a scene in here. It's like, no, every scene moves the story forward. And so,
Right.
I mean, I would recommend actor read Save the Cat because it will help you break down a script much easier.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think after that,
Six
I
months. 6 months
yeah,
is like, but but you crammed so much in that 6 months.
yes,
Do you know what I mean? Is what I'm saying. Like, there's reading that book is really a lot to also then take notes on as well, because it's a short book. Everybody, it's I have it over here somewhere. It's less than 200 pages, I think, but it's really easy and compact. But it's
for sure.
also a lot of information.
Ton of information. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think I just like learning. So, I've learned a lot about photography and now I
yeah,
learned about script writing. I like to learn about audio stuff. So, and I've always been a little techie. So anytime I get the opportunity to learn about something new, I'm really curious. Like when I had people come in and work on my house, it makes them feel weird, but I love watching it because
yeah,
I don't, like that's how that works. And there's so many things that are actually really simple to do, like changing the oil in your car. But
yeah,
if you've never done it before, it seems so
yeah.
terrifying.
Not gonna
And
do it. I'm not gonna do it, Brent. I'm not gonna
it's,
do it. I'm not gonna
it's
do it. Like,
too
I don't care what you. I don't care that my dad sent you. It's not gonna happen.
much.
It's just not
Yeah.
gonna. Hey, it's DaJuan, and I want to talk to you actor to actor. If you've been grinding, auditioning, taping, and still wondering when it's finally gonna click, I created something for you. It's called the Booked and Busy Actors Retreat, and it's happening August 22nd through August 24th right here in Los Angeles. And this isn't just another event, it's a reset. 3 days in person here in Los Angeles. And the room, it's going to be filled with casting directors, agents, working series regulars, and actors like you who are done playing small. You could be one of the actors who gets their self-tapes reviewed live. You could be one of the actors sitting across from reps in a mock meeting. And no matter what, you'll be creating, connecting, and walking away with a roadmap that's built around the work you put in that weekend. No more DMs into the void. No more wondering if they saw your tape. No more feeling like you're doing this all alone. And let me tell you, last year, actors called this retreat transformational, generous, the most real actor experience they ever attended. And this year, we're going to go even deeper. We'll work on mindset, sharpening your craft, and making sure that you walk back into this industry, you do it with confidence, clarity, and a circle that has your back. This is where you stop waiting to be picked and start showing up all like you already booked it. So go to www.bookedandbusyactorsretreat.com to claim your seat. Again, that's www.bookedandbusyactorsretreat.com. Seats are intentionally limited, so if this sounds like your next move, trust that feeling. I'll see you there. See, I just wanted to really just break that down to great. So we start reading Save the Cat, and then we moved into I got to come up with an idea, or was that percolating already? And then
Yeah.
you started to write.
I mean, luckily I had already put myself in, I had already said I'm writing a Christmas rom-com. So then it
Okay.
was, oh, well, you've got, I mean, nothing against Christmas rom-coms, but they are formula movies if they're on Hallmark or Lifetime. They're different if they're on Netflix or the streaming sites. But I was like, okay, cool. So I've got a small box. We know exactly what happens on these things. And if you actually Google the 9-act formula for a Lifetime Christmas rom-com, it will tell you like page 1 to 7, this happens. Page 8 to 15, this happens. So it gives you such a wonderful outline that all you got to do is then inject your own story. And then I kind of took stories that I had seen before that I really enjoyed, that I wanted to make a similar but different movie, which is also from Save the Cat. And I was great. I loved How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and I loved Hitch. I was like, so let's write, How to Lose a Guy in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days meets Hitch with a female lead set over Christmas.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, great. And then the story kind of wrote itself from there. And then I just injected a lot of my own personal stories with my parents and my friends. And it just slowly came together. And I also was surrounded by a bunch of people that were very encouraging, that were excited to read it, that were excited to help me with notes. And so it definitely wasn't like I just sat in a room and this all was magic by myself. I've just had a really good group of people around me like you, where I have so much encouragement and so many really talented folks around me that it's a lot easier to make things when you do groupthink.
Yeah, that's a good, because I was just wondering, I wrote down here, like, how did you keep yourself accountable? Because you said you had deadlines and goals and all that stuff like that. But some of the things that people, I think, really fall into the trap of is like, now, how do I meet those goals and deadlines? And that's the accountability part of, did you have somebody that was going to read this? Or like, did you just like, or was it just the 6 months? I knew I had to be back for that.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, we got to where they said we'll make it if Brian Herzlinger says it can be made. And I sent it to Brian. Brian read it. He goes, "Hey, it's actually really cute. It's clever. It's fun. I think we can do this." But at that time, it wasn't in the 9 act structure. I didn't know what the 9 act structure was because I hadn't read that blog yet.
Mhm.
So he goes, "You've got like 48 hours. So if you can write it in 48 hours, we can get this done." And I was living with a guy named Greg Cohn at the time, and I was like, I can't do that. He goes, "You could try." And I was like,
Wow.
"I could
Wow.
try." And so I sat down and I rewrote it, sent it back to him, and he goes, "Great, we can make this." He's like, "It needs rewrites and tweaks, but like now this is a good enough foundation that we can move forward." And then we went into pre-production, and I was like, "Oh, but if I didn't have a friend around to be like, you can do this," because I felt a little defeated. I was like, "Oh, I thought it was good. Enough people had read it that said it was good. I thought we could just make it." And once I got that one criticism, I was like, "Oh, it's not great."
Yeah.
So luckily I had him to be like, "No, you could do this. This is easy. You've already done the hard work. You've already got somebody that said they'll give you the money, they'll direct it, and you can make this. You just have to put 48 hours in and do a tweak." And I was like, "All right." And so I did.
It's so important, everybody. I say it over and over again about the people you surround yourself with. It is so incredibly important just to hear that little "you can try." And
Yeah.
then you're like, well, I get, yeah, of course I can. All right, I'll give it a shot. Coming from this is over, my life is over, I'm moving back. You probably weren't that way. That's my talk. Like, I'm out of here,
I was just kind
to
of like, "Yeah, I guess it's not going to get made. I tried."
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then, I could have had a buddy that was with me that's like, "Yeah, dude, that's too hard. Like, let's go to the bar." But
yeah.
he was like, "No, you should try." And I was like,
You're
"Cool.
so close. You're
Yeah,
so
you're
close to the
so
finish line. So close to the finish line, and that's usually when people give up. The
yeah."
quickest when they're so
And
so.
I've had quite a few friends that like I look at their careers when they walk away, and I'm like, "Man, at this point in your career, you're like where people dream of being.
Hmm.
Why are you so defeated?" And again, I think it goes to that competition. And I just heard Glenn Powell was just talking about that. He said like Denzel Washington gave him a piece of advice, like, don't look at everybody else in the race. Like, you're going to follow your own
Yeah,
path.
yeah,
Everybody's path is going to be different. He's like, so don't sit there and wonder like, why is that guy working? Why am I not working? He's like, you just got to like, you go, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And like, you stay true to yourself, you do the work, and eventually your time will come. But I think, it is tough if you do see somebody working all the time to start, or at least eliminate those thoughts of like, okay, why are they working so much and why aren't I?
hmm
It's tricky. And I think that no matter where you are in your career, everybody always believes like once you've booked a certain role or a certain movie or a certain thing has happened that all of a sudden this business gets easier. It doesn't. You just move up to the next level where you have a bunch of other people at that same level you're still competing with.
yeah.
So it's like you got to really love doing this, and you've got to kind of enjoy or love the chase and the ride mixed with the journey. Otherwise, this is not a fun career.
This is not. This is not. I call it the solar system of acting. I've always called it that way for my entire like career out here. That when you're first starting out, everybody, you're on. We're not going to argue this, by the way. We're on Pluto. I don't want to argue that Pluto's not a planet. Like, but you're on that ring that Pluto, and each one you jump up to. Like Neptune, Uranus. You're jumping up, and you're like, all right, I made it to the next ring, and then it's like, holy crap. Like, it's like you said, this next level of actors or producers or writers that are on this ring too. It's smaller. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's tighter. Then it goes to the next one. I've always thought about it that way because every rung that I have gone up in my, proverbial career, let's say the proverbial rung, is that I see like, oh, okay, so this is the next rung. It's more competitive.
Right.
I don't want to, competitive is not the word I want to use because I can believe that competition can be like we were talking about at the beginning, can just be against ourselves, but like it's just more people doing it, and they
Sure.
they have more accolades. I guess we want to say behind their names, and there's people. It's just interesting. It's very 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 interesting. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weird career.
mm.
One of my buddies always says like we joined the circus. It's like yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay. And the interesting thing too is like once you get out of that ring of Pluto,
Yeah.
the things like, and that's why I always say, like, hey, take everything that you learn or you hear from people with a grain of salt. What works for one person doesn't work for another. And also, what works for you at the beginning of your career is going to be very different than what works for you now. Like you, and I don't know if this is a sore subject. If it is, tell me not to talk about it.
Yeah.
But like I heard you talking about teleprompters.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love using a teleprompter when it's a ton of dialogue and it's a last minute audition because I've put in the work in my career and I've done enough to now be able to use that as a way of auditioning. If you would have given me a teleprompter when I was first in the business and what they call green, it would have been terrible.
Yeah.
I've booked numerous roles using a teleprompter, and I help people tape all the time who also use teleprompters, who book numerous series regulars.
Yes.
So I always say, like, people should never criticize somebody else's method or technique just because it's different than their own, because that's like, just because it's your way doesn't mean it's the right way. And just because it's your way doesn't mean there can't also be another right way. You've got major celebrities that use an earpiece on set. I've been on set with actors that have a teleprompter behind my head or cue cards behind my head. And you're like, yeah, everybody does their own thing. And if you're really good, they can't tell that you're doing it. So I always tell people, just like, even with my advice, listen to what I say. If it resonates with you, great. Take it, and I hope it helps. If it doesn't resonate, that's okay. Just because I've said something doesn't mean what your acting teacher said that conflicts with it is wrong. Just pick whichever makes you a better actor, which helps your career the most, and then go with that.
I love that. I love that. And you know, it's one of the things that I really wanted to teach with that teleprompter thing. I think what I really hit on, which I didn't know I was hitting on, was maybe one of Hollywood's best kept secrets, or dirty little secrets, if you will, that I didn't know. Because I'm a giver. I'm like, let's go. Oh, wow, you can learn this. And people, and it came up against, like, we don't talk about that. And people just, and I
Which
was
is,
like,
again, that's turning more to competition. Now you're saying, like, oh, I don't want people to know this thing, because now they're going to be able to do the 10 pages of sites faster. And like, that's how I strive, is I have snuck in this method where I can make it look like I'm so good that in 10 pages, oh, give me 30 seconds, I got it.
that's what we should be able to share. Like, and I just believe that, and I think, like, you hit the nail on the head, that I am aware that what works for me might not work for you, Brent. But I also am aware, the way I said it, I say the hustle or that I had in the beginning of my career is not needed for this leg. It's different. It's different. And so, like you said, I know that I can do the preparation on a character totally different. I can get in a lot faster than I did 10 years ago. So I can look at a teleprompter, do my work, and go with it. And, you know, I hopefully, you know, if I can save, you know, one or two actors that time and that anxiety.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, if we're really taking this conversation in a different way, if we're being honest, the anxiety of feeling like, if I'm not word perfect, or if I don't get these lines down, I can't get this character, because that's what they really want. If I can take that away from younger DaJuan, then I think I don't care. I don't care what other coaches and stuff like that say, you know.
And I have a buddy who's a coach, and he, when I first told him I used a teleprompter, was like disgusted. He's like, that's not acting. I was like, well, guess what? Auditioning is also very different than acting on set. I was like, so I'm doing this just to show them, like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I think I'll bring to it. And then after you book the job, you obviously, at least for me, come to set very memorized, ready to go, but also very open and malleable to where you can change. Because the amount of times that I've been on set and we've rewritten the scene, or they have, or somebody has, or we've shot it in a weird order, or like the other actor has thoughts and you're just like, cool, I can do that. It's always changing and evolving. So you have to come to set prepared. Auditions, it's its own beast. I mean, I've heard like Bryan Cranston and other people be like, oh, auditions are scary. Or no, Bryan Cranston might have said the bit where it's like, your job is to audition, enjoy that, have the most fun with that. Your job is not to book the job. It's to just, like, at that day, you're being hired to do an audition.
Did you mean to sound like him? You sound a little bit like him. Like,
I'm really bad at impressions, so I'll take it.
For a second there.
Yeah. I mean, that's, again, I think I've already said it, but that's what I try to do, is I try to look up to people and listen to people that have careers that I admire. And that being said, I've also had acting coaches that don't work as much, but I just really respect their knowledge, and I feel like they are putting people on the right path to success. So it's tricky. Everybody loves to tell you how this business works. And
Right.
at the end of the day, I don't think anybody truly knows.
Who would know? If that one person did know, they would have a line out the door. I say that all the time. This is just what's worked for me, some of my clients, some of the people that I've worked with. And you take the essence of it and make it yours.
Right.
That's it. You got to make it your own. That's the only thing I know to be true in this is that we just have to be ourselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that they're selling you in all those rom-coms. Like
Right.
it's so good. I have a couple more questions about this. I just wanted to just make sure before. Sorry for our tangent, y'all. This is what happened when you get like, actors together and we just want to talk shop. But I guess, one of the things what was the process like for the network and the studio or like no on
It was Lifetime
Lifetime,
for
sorry.
a dating guide.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Hollywood Dating Guy was on Lifetime, but what was that process like? Just was it Brian? He was the director
Ryan
or
is the director, and I think he's on
producer?
a peer producer, but he has a wonderful relationship with Lifetime and just with numerous other networks. But usually, and don't quote me because again, this is not something I'm an expert in. I kind of dabbled as an EP, and I only dabbled in so far that it wouldn't affect my acting work in the whole project. But the way that I typically understand it is like they have their own movies that they make under the Lifetime banner that they fund, and then they have acquisitions. We were coming in as an independent, and then at the end of the movie, we had intentions to try to go off and sell it. Once we
Mm.
saw the amazing Maria Menounos, that combination was like Lifetime was in. So they pre-bought us. We were bought before we actually went to start filming. So I think that helped, alleviate a lot of concerns because now we had a guarantee we're not going to lose a ton of money on this, or at least for
Yeah. How did you get Maria in it?
Brian had a relationship with Maria because she was in a movie that he directed prior with Janet Kramer, and Maria had expressed interest in wanting to be the lead of one of these rom-coms. So he was like, let's see if Maria will do it. I don't know if she will or she won't, but let's ask her. And she read the script and she's like, I have a few things I'd like to change, but yeah, like I'm in. And
Yeah.
that changed everything. And that is like, the tough part about everybody's always like, man, how come it's just like the same people over and over and over in these movies? And it's like, well, it's a guarantee of your return on investment, which gets harder. And then hopefully you can trickle in some new actors along the way that it helps build up their careers as well. But yeah, Maria was pretty much Maria and Brian were like the sole reasons that we got.
Not you. Not you. Like
I always struggle with that. I think like I even
I'm
heard
sorry.
Andrew Garfield talk about this. Like I think imposter syndrome is such a real thing in our business. I always want, like I even have people come up to me in commercial auditions that like they say it as a joke, but they're like, man, you're here, like I might as well leave. And I'm like, oh, like I don't know. I don't love that. I always feel, and I think that's something our business does too.
Hmm.
When you do walk in, like when I read for a movie, I do still go like, there's a lot of other guys that are bigger than me that can get this, as opposed to believing that I'm at the level that I am at, where I've been very
Hmm.
successful. And I don't know if that's like trying to be humble or if it is just truly imposter syndrome, or it's just that this business is super fickle and you never know when it's going to dry up. But I do struggle with that. Like, yeah, I'm sure that having the script, bringing together all of these wonderful people, obviously that had to have an impact on why it got made because it wouldn't even have been there to get made or to be bought by Lifetime if I hadn't started the ball rolling. I think that's something I probably need to work on is just being better about like congratulating myself for my success and kind of doing it in a way where I don't feel like it's being egotistical, but also not like so self-deprecating.
I love that. I love this moment that you shared that is totally transparent and vulnerable. And thank you for sharing it so openly. If I may, because, we're friends, then I would say that whatever you work on, you do on it. Like I'll let you do that in private, but also understand that somewhere in our childhood, in our past, in our generation, that we've been told that we can't be braggadocious. We have to be humble. We can't really step fully into this moment. And this is a moment for you. This is great. Like as a guy who gets to see outside, anything that I'm saying to you, I hope uplifts you. I hope goes and says like, I'm looking at you and I'm like, F yeah, I want to be like this guy because we're here, and
Yeah.
I am always in that current of success, that momentum. That like if this is Brent is Brent, not could be Brent. Sorry, I say Brent here. If Brent is doing this, that means I can also do this. That has nothing to do with like anything else. And yeah, you need to like throw it over your shoulder, man. Throw it over your shoulder and just be like, this is yes, we need to do it a different way. Second thing I want to say, imposter syndrome. What I try to say to my collective is make sure we look at it a different way of imposter syndrome is simply just we are in the new land that we hoped and prayed to be in.
Right.
That is really what it is. And so when we're there, we start feeling like out of the norm or like what's happening. But it is literally what you worked on for those 6 months. It is literally what you worked on for the past 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years talking about rom-coms. This is the land that you have been wishing and hoping and praying in. And now that you're in it, something is possibly telling you to play small, to play small here when it's like, no, I'm asking you to step fully into this world because if you're in that world, I'm in that world.
Right. I love that.
You're literally taking me with you. And I'm like, and everybody else that you know, Greg, I think you said his name was,
Yeah, great.
you're taking Greg with you. You're taking Maria with you. You're taking us with you, right? You don't do this in a vacuum. And so for me, I'm just saying it as a guy who we were in some crappy bar in West Hollywood, no, West LA at a karaoke bar in the middle of the day where it's blacked out doing synthesized life. Now you're in a whole different room.
Right.
I'm automatically in that room as well. Everybody who you know is automatically in that room as well. So I want you to step boldly, man.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know. I like it. That's good. We all need pep talks.
But I mean it. And you dip. You're gonna dip, right? But you said to me that you understand the secret, is what you said.
I know.
So now we got to get into it, y'all, because you know this is where mindset comes. Here's what I want you to know about the secret. The secret is a secondary law. The primary law of the secret is the law of vibration. The law of vibration decrees that it's up and down, the frequency and movement and stuff like that. And so you can't manifest the stuff that you want in the secret if you are not up on that different vibration. That different vibration might be the stuff that you're talking about in imposter syndrome. So I want to make sure that you keep bringing yourself up to that frequency that you are at and over and over and over again. Does that make sense about that? Because we can't manifest this. He's like, I came over here to talk about producing.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I have had those friends that like they just say like, I deserve to be on a series regular. I deserve this. And then all of a sudden you see that they book it and you're like, oh man, you made it. But also like, how do you have so much confidence that you're like, I deserve this? And that's a challenging thing to do, but I admire it.
Well, we all deserve it. So I do think, and like you deserve it, but I also just want you to know that I hear you on imposter syndrome. I just want to make sure that we're saying that, like, anyway, because I think you're great, humble. I've worked with you on different things, and I know you're not out there like being a shit on people. You know what I mean? Like you in those spaces really matters. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do you remember this random thing? You all like we're gonna land this plane in a second. I remember this random thing. And we're not going to get into this because this might be a little spicy for us, but we did a movie together 2 or 3 years ago called 1-800 Hot Night. Mm-hmm. And we were in the backyard of that wherever place we were shooting, and they were doing a gun test. Do you remember they were like showing all the guns, and then they had come to me or something like that, and they didn't let me see it. And I was like, no, I need to see the gun working because the gun. I was like, and they were like, oh, it's only blanks or it's not something. I was like, well, it's not being fired at you. So I was like, I had stood my ground because I had worked on the show and done that. And then all that stuff happened with like in Arizona, right? And I was like, this is why I am so adamant about like I get to speak up for other actors that don't get to speak up and do that because of, where we are in our career. But, it's a crazy story, you all, but I did speak up and I was just like, no, I need to see inside the gun because I want to make sure before we even get started, if the guns are being pointed at me, there's a hard no on that. I don't know if you remember that moment, but
I don't think because you were by the time because I play a cop on this movie, obviously. By the time I think I see you, I think you're already in the cop car because I'm with your son in the bedroom. So I don't arrest you. I come out and grab him from the cop car. So I never had my gun came out of my holster. So I don't even know if I was there when they showed all the guns, but I think that was also because nobody was drawing one. I'm sure they probably said like, hey, all the guns are fake. None of them have firing pins. None of them are loaded unless we did have blanks. But I think for my part of the scene, since nothing was ever coming out of a locked holster, that I don't think they cared as much on my side. But yeah, you absolutely. I just got done doing a movie where I played another detective, and I do like a raid, and I come in and I fire off Hollywood rounds. So it has like the blast and And I was like, okay, we need to make sure everybody sees who's there. And like, I'm not pulling this trigger anywhere near a human.
Yeah.
And I had somebody shooting over my back shoulder too. And I was like, you aim that way.
Yeah. It's good. I think one of the things that for me this is such a tangent for me, guys, but I remember thinking that we need to, it doesn't matter if it's coming out as holster or not. If you have guns on this set, I need to see it for me. And that's because you all won't believe this, but we have fake guns on Bosch.
Really?
Those aren't real. Like, you know what I mean? There's no need for it. There's no need for real guns.
I was also on Bosch and I had a gun. I'm sure it was a rubber gun.
Yeah. There's some real gun. Yeah. We didn't like, we didn't, it's one of those things. Like, you know what I mean? Like and I pulled it. I mean, I think if it wasn't rubber, then they had like another,
like an airsoft gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just didn't have any of that stuff, and there was never a need, so we didn't do any of those talks. But Brent, I'm gonna land this plane. I got a couple random questions just to ask you. You know, what two back to back? You know, your scariest moments about being a producer, a writer, the scariest moments and the most rewarding moments that you had there.
We'll go happiest first. So most rewarding would be I talk about my parents a lot, which I guess just is a testament to how awesome they are. But my mom is the sweetest lady in the whole world. And so every time I do something that's like big, she will literally rent out an entire like movie theater in Arizona, and I'll go back there and we'll have like our own premiere for like friends and family. And so that one, The Holiday Dating Guide, hit home a little different because not only was it a movie in the theater, but it was a movie with like a lot of nods to my parents and friends, and then being able to watch it in a theater with my parents and friends and do a Q&A after. And for parts of it, like somebody in the crowd, which I didn't even know, my parents used to say the way that they've kept their marriage, alive and strong for the past 40 whatever years is they always say, like during a fight, they'll say, you might be right. And then that's a tough thing to argue with. You're like, you might be right. And so that was a really big theme in the movie, which obviously got whittled down to just two little moments, but it was still like a theme for me. And at the end of the screening, somebody raised their hand and they go, your parents got that from us. And it was another couple that was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never knew that was like something that came from somebody else. So then they felt really excited because something that they had told was in a movie. And so like, that was awesome. I just like to be able to share stuff, with my parents and with my friends. And so like doing that kind of stuff is the most rewarding part. The scariest part is probably just like a fear of failure. Cause like, even when we were on set, sometimes, even though Brian had helped so much with the script and his wife as well, but you always have those moments of self-doubt. Like, is this good? Like for anybody that's watching, do you think this is cute? Like, are we landing this? And I think the scary part is you don't really know until it's completely done. Because sometimes I think I've been on projects where I'm like, this is going to be awesome. And then it turns out not so awesome. And then on other ones, like you're like, this seems okay. And then it turns out so good.
Yeah.
So I think, just the unknown about like, am I going to have my name attached on this thing that's going to go down as like George Clooney now makes fun of himself for Batman. He like talks about how he bragged to everybody that he was going to be Batman. And then he like kind of jokes that like, apparently it's noted as like one of the worst movies in the history of film. I love the way he approaches it because he makes light of it. Yeah. But I think that's a scary thing. You don't want people to hate what you do. We don't ever make stuff for people.
No, we don't. Nobody does. Nobody does. This question, actor that you might hate as an actor, but I'm going to ask you as an actor and then actually as a producer and just as the world, don't answer if you don't want to answer it, is just honestly like, what's next? What's next? Because I need a Romcom fix. I mean, can we get a black guy in it? Like, I mean,
of course.
No, I mean, like, is that a fair question to ask? I know as actors, we don't know. We don't know. Are you writing more or like what?
I kind of stepped back from the writing. I think I gained so much
like I did it
for the writers and for the process. And also I did it. I was able to be successful in it once, and then I was like, I don't love it. I would rather let somebody else that's much more talented do it. So now I've kind of partnered up with other writers. I have one like Christmas movie in particular that we've been trying to get made. Hopefully, we're very close. We keep getting really close. And that's kind of my goal now, is to take my friends that are writing really good stuff that is not getting the attention that it deserves, and trying to pair them with the producers and myself so that I can come in as an actor and the money and make these other people be able to make their projects and kind of like
All right, all right, all right. Hold on, guys. I'm cutting him off. I'm cutting him off. I'm being rude because I just had this conversation. And I didn't know this part was coming. We hadn't had this talk. I just had this conversation because that was what my spirit was telling me, that when I'm in a room, when you're in a room, I'm in a room too. And you're just telling me that is exactly what you're doing.
For sure.
That whole win there, that you might be imposter syndrome, it might not have been just for you. Like, you literally are bringing, like you just said it. Man, Brent, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, you're in the room because that's the guy you are. Like, I know that the guy, you're not like, okay, great. That's not what I want to do. But I now have connections that I can help those people that are uber talented. I'm going to bring them into this space as well. Sorry to cut you off, but I was like,
yeah, well, that's one of my, almost to a fault, that is one of my favorite things to do, is help other people. Sometimes it hasn't gone so well, but I love helping my friends get jobs. I love helping talented people get seen when they haven't been able to like break through that wall. And so I think that's more what I've enjoyed doing, just because I think it's very fulfilling. And writing didn't fulfill me in the way that I wanted it to, so I just chose not to keep going with that. I'm not saying I'll never write again. If something comes to mind and I think like maybe I've got something creative or clever, maybe I'll do it again, but it's definitely not on like the forefront of my priorities. And then on the acting side of things, a lot of stuff thankfully has been going on. I just got done shooting a movie called The Huntsman with Jesse Schramm and Garrett Dillahunt, and Sean.
is that in Oklahoma? Is that in
Yeah,
Oklahoma?
that's like an Oklahoma job. And so I shot that. I had to fly back and forth because I also shot a commercial for Comcast at the same time, where I run around high-fiving people. And then, this is a terribly sad story, I also was attached to the next Michael Showalter movie. He did Idea of You with Anne Hathaway, and I luckily got to be in that movie. And then when he was doing his new one with Michelle Pfeiffer called Oh What Fun, it's a Christmas rom-com, and I was like, hey guys, I don't even care what it is, I'll do anything in that movie. And he so graciously offered me a role. So I flew to Atlanta right after I got done with the movie in Oklahoma, and their schedule got pushed so far back that I sat there for 3 days, and they had to fly me back to LA, and then I wasn't available for the new dates. And so pass. So I hate missing work, but at the same time, some other very lucky individual got to go work with Michael Showalter. And I hope he time, but it's always hard when like scheduling in our business. And I don't know if this happens to you. I assume it does. I'll go like 3 or 4 months and be like, it'll just be crickets. And I'll be like, oh, I'm never going to work again. I'm living in Big Bear now. And all of a sudden I'll book 5 jobs that all conflict, and you have to choose 2 of them. And it's like, how do you choose the ones for the money? Do you choose it for the career? Do you do what your team is saying? Do you do the ones you love the best? And it's always the most painful and most,
all of it. No matter what you're making, no matter what decision you're making, it's going to be painful, man. I'm sorry. Like, it's nothing. And then like you make it, and the first thing that goes wrong in one of those decisions you made, you're like, I should have went that way.
Yep. Should have chose the other one. Yeah. It's brutal. And that always happens to me. My friends and my family, it's always, there's like 2 rules of thumb. And it's like, you book a trip out of town, you book a job. And you book a job, you'll book something else that conflicts, so you can't do both.
Yeah, you can.
And it's painful, but it's a very good problem to have. Everybody would love to have the problem of, I have to turn something down because I'm so busy.
Yes.
Hopefully I will work with Michael Showalter and his producing partner Jordana again, because they're so lovely, and I loved being on their sets, and I was absolutely gutted that I couldn't go.
Yeah, you will be. We're gonna here over the Think Bigger peeps. We're gonna wish that in for you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us. This has been such a great talk, and I really think we pulled this apart about this writer and producer thing, and I really wanted to just dive into it because I think that this is a process that I think other actors can repeat. I think that you can do this. There was a lot of luck, like you said, an opportunity that happened there with meeting, the people from Lifetime and Brian, I think you said his name was.
Yep.
Again, those things all worked, but Stephanie, you stepped up to it. You know what I mean? Like, so we can't take that part out of it, man. So
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much, brother. I'm so excited. Appreciate you for coming in.
Of course, anytime.
Oh, Brent, I told you this episode was going to be so good. Like, I don't know if I have any bad episodes, but like this one was just really, really good to sit and, just like chop it up with him. And let's talk about that moment. Let's talk about a moment in there. The moment he says, the one where you could say, nah, I'm not a writer, or I've never done this before, or what if I fail? You can say all of that stuff. So let's get into the D12 shot. Instead, you can say this. Yeah, I'll try. That's what Brent did. He could have, kept waiting for the next audition. He could have said no when they offered him Hunky Santa. He could have said no when Lifetime asked if he had a script, but instead he said yes. He said yes, then gave himself a deadline, said yes, then crammed a full rewrite into 48 hours, said yes, even when it would have been easier to wait and play it safe. To play it safe, to blame your agents, to play it safe, to join the cult of average, any of that stuff. It could have happened, but he didn't. And because he said yes, he built something. A movie, a premiere, a seat at the table for himself and for the friends he's bringing with him now. Listen, this industry will never give you full permission. It just won't. Everybody's waiting for full permission to go. It won't give you full permission. Nobody's going to show up at your door with a step-by-step plan that has 100% guarantee of working. It just won't. You want this career? You better be ready to bet on yourself before anybody else does. There's risk. There is risk. I don't need to tell you that. Sure. Failure could happen, but not trying guarantees you stay right where you are. And to be clear, being told no 100 times or 1,000 times is not failure. That's just part of the business. Your job isn't just to audition. Your job isn't just to create. Your job isn't just to walk into those rooms and be told no. Your job is to create, to connect, to lead, to learn, to build. And Brent reminded us of this in the best possible way. You are allowed to grow beyond one lane. Gosh, I wish someone had said this to me when I was just starting out. Heck, even 10 years in, I wish I had heard this. You are allowed to be a writer, a producer, an actor, a storyteller. You are allowed to do it differently. Your way. So if you've been waiting for the perfect moment, it's this one. Say yes. Even if your voice shakes. Even if you never have done it before. Even if the path is one you're still paving yourself. Do it scared. As my pal Will used to say. Do it scared. But just do it. I want you to know I'm rooting for you so big. I really am. I'm rooting for you so big. And if you need the reminder, don't quit. Don't get out of line. Borrow my faith in you. Because I want you to hold the vision, not the circumstance. I'm so honored to be sitting here and just giving these words out. My D12 shot, my whole episode, I just dedicated to you specifically, you. dedicated to you because I just love talking to y'all. All right, let me know what you think about this episode. Let me know if the D12 worked for you. You know, let's talk in the Instagrams, in the DMs, or feel free to email me at info@thinkbiggercoaching.com. I always love talking to you. And you better, check out Casting Networks. We're going to have some stuff below the episode here that you can click on and you can do all that stuff. That's the stuff that I want to make sure is there for you. All good and go. I'll see you next week.